At first glance, these games seem like a joke. Yet, they've managed to captivate thousands, maybe even millions of players, including me. In an age of high-octane multiplayer shooters and endless flashy content, games like Lawn Mowing Simulator and Power Wash Simulator thrive by being, well, boring. But are they boring in the right way? And what makes one more compelling than the other? I've chosen to compare these two games because they are pretty far on the average review and popularity spectrum, but conceptually are meant to scratch the same itch. And by the end of this video, you'll discover how they achieve this excellence in the mundane. At first, it seems quite idiotic to be sitting in front of your computer and spending countless hours mowing virtual grass or cleaning virtual dirt with a virtual power washer. But hear me out. I have an office job. It's not a particularly bad or boring office job, but still most of my day consists of emails, meetings, invoices, and the occasional job trip, where you have to fly a few thousand miles to talk about weather face to face. A proper adult life experience that I can't complain about too much. But the longer I have this office job, the more I crave and value the simple tasks in my life. Moving a pile of sand from one place to another, chopping and stacking firewood, mowing grass. I understand that someone whose job involves large amounts of grass cutting, wood chopping, and sand pile moving might say that I enjoy these things just because I don't do it on a daily basis for 8 hours a day, and they are right. I enjoy these things because they provide a change of pace, a different kind of brain and body stimulation. But I and most of the people who have office jobs live in the city, where there is no need to chop wood, cut grass, and move piles of sand. Only if you're wealthy enough you can afford to move to the countryside and do these things, which is kind of ironic if you look at it that way. So, our daily life gets more and more intellectually and mentally stimulating, complicated and saturated, and this brings up the value of a controlled and simple task, which can be completed in small increments that feel satisfying. That creates a vacuum, and this vacuum can be rather cheaply and effectively filled by gaming. And this is where games like Grass Mowing and Power Wash Simulator excels and finds their target audience. Of course, if you presented a game like this to a borderline ADHD teenager whose attention span has been obliterated by short-form video, the response would be most likely negative. Also, I'm not trying to generalize. I'm sure there are many kids and teens who enjoy these games, but heck, even I at this age would have preferred to wreck some cars in my city or play a match or two in my favorite Counter-Strike 1.6 server. These games have a different purpose. They provide a stark contrast to the everyday overstimulation I experience. It's therapeutic. It's an escape. But now, let's unwrap these two games and compare their building blocks side by side to better understand why they work. Let's start with the Lawn Mowing Simulator. As the title might suggest, this is a game about cutting grass. You start out with one of the 3 starting mowers, a trimmer, and a small garage, with 1 mower slot. After this, you're introduced to the basic gameplay loop, which goes something like this. You choose a suitable contract, choose your mower and trimmer, and teleport to the contract destination. First task at each place is ground inspection, during which you collect objects that could interfere with the mowing. After that is done, you go back to the trailer and hop on your mower. It's trivial enough to be almost stupid, but there are a few mechanics to keep the player at least somewhat engaged. Each contract specifies the desirable length of the grass after mowing, and if an overgrown plot has to be cut low, you'll have to keep a close eye not to overload the mower engine, which will result in engine damage and uneven trim. So you need to either go slower or make multiple passes with different trim heights. On each contract, you have to deal with at least 99% of the grass, which means, most often than not, after you're done with the mower, for the finishing touches, you'll have to reach for the trimmer and gather the last few percent required to end the contract. And that's it for the main loop. It's very simple, and the only milestone presented to the player while doing each job is finishing it. No checkpoints, no gear switching, just mowing and being done mowing. Outside this, there is the meta progression of your business. With money earned on the contracts, the player can upgrade and buy new garages, better mowers that can be stored in these spaces, and better trimmers as well. Besides money, you also earn reputation points that allow you to get better contracts and hire workers to grow your business and build your mowing empire. Visually, the game is quite simple, but it gets the job done. Main thing that matters is to be able to differentiate the uncut patches from the freshly trimmed lawn, and how this part slowly grows during the play session. The audio is also not overcomplicated, mostly just the ASMR-like sound of the usual mower engines or the quiet hum of the eco-electric mower engines. One of the main gripes most players and I have with this game is that you're not able to save your progress within a contract, and I'm not completely sure why the developers have not implemented this quality of life feature. It should not be a technical limitation, and it would not impact the core gameplay loop too much, so it also does not make any sense from a game design perspective. But it is what it is, and you have to finish the contract in one go. Now let's glance at the Power Wash Simulator and see how it compares to its grass cutting counterpart. In this game, the player character uses a high pressure washer to clean a great variety of objects, varying from a single dirt bike or van to houses, backyards, and everything in between. Similar as in Mowing Simulator, the gameplay loop starts with choosing a contract of your liking, after which the player is dropped off at the contract location and instantly can jump into the cleaning process. To make the cleaning just entertaining enough and provide a strategic element to the process, the player has to more or less constantly switch between different types of nozzles that change the width and strength of the pressure washer. For larger surfaces, a wider stream makes more sense, while you'll need the more narrow nozzles for nastier dirt that requires higher pressure to get the object clean. Also, you can rotate the nozzle to change the angle of the stream. Of course, it's also completely possible to finish a contract with just using one high-pressure nozzle and not worry about any of this, but that is up to the player to choose. Using these mechanics, the player has to clean 100% of all the objects in order to finish a contract. After this is done, there is a short animation which shows the player a supercut of their own cleaning process, and I must admit, this is super satisfying to watch. Similar as in Mowing Simulator, there is also some progression outside the cleaning. The player can use earned funds to purchase better cleaning equipment, like higher tier pressure washers, attachments to these washers, new nozzles, and cleaning fluids for specific surface types. This provides larger goals outside of each contract. Visuals are also quite simplistic, but the main part, cleaning dirt, has been made very satisfying to watch and experience. This experience is reinforced also by the sound design of high pressure stream hitting the varying surfaces at different distances, area, and pressure. Power Wash Simulator also has one completely unique dimension over Lawn Mowing Simulator, a social element. The player can accept contracts in both career and special contracts in co-op mode, and play together with friends or even complete strangers. This can lead to some fun and unexpected moments. The social element is also a part where some players find a bit of frustration. If you want to advance your career in co-op mode, only one of the players will get all of the rewards, so if both you and your friend want to complete the career mode, you'll have to complete each contract at least 2 times for each account. Now that we've looked at each of the games, a logical question emerges. Why is Power Washing Simulator just so much more popular? Let's try to make an educated guess. Both of these games can be viewed as an extreme version of a children's coloring book. Only in one case, the empty white pages are uncut grass, which is gradually filled with nicely trimmed lawn, and in the other case, the player is using the pressure washer almost as a literal brush to return the color of the various objects it touches. One of the first and main things that, in my opinion, tip the wider appeal scales in the Power Wash Simulator's favor is how often the player gets rewarded. You see, in the Lawn Mowing Simulator, you get positive feedback from the game only when you finish to cut the 99% required in each contract. while in the Power Wash Simulator each contract is divided into lots and lots of smaller objects and even subdivisions of these objects. So for example, when cleaning this path, the player receives visual confirmation for each cleaned rock, and even better yet, finishing to wash each of these sub-elements also generates this audio cue. A simple, satisfying So if we go back to why people even play these kinds of games, which is to experience and complete small incremental tasks that feel satisfying, it all makes complete sense. It combines the mundane core activity with just the right amount of stimulation to keep the short attention span player rewarded to go for one more clean pole, one more clean window, or one more finished element, just to hear the little ding and move closer to finishing the whole contract. Another place where dopamine is reaped, the ending of a contract. This is a pleasurable experience by itself due to the invested time, but the Power Wash Simulator goes one step further and shows you the montage of you finishing the contract at super speed, condensing the last hour or so spent cleaning in a few marvelous seconds, which are presented after the experience from a third-person view. A technique probably inspired by the social media playbook, where we look at our own lives like a satisfied audience member. This, combined with the social aspect via multiplayer, seems to indicate that the Power Wash Simulator does mundane better than Lawn Mowing Simulator. But it does this by being less mundane under the hood, with little tricks here and there to keep the player stimulated while appearing to be just as boring. So can you really say it's better at being mundane by being less mundane? Well, yes, if you compare it to this. And this is why I would also like to compare these mundane task games to some much faster paced and more stimulating games, and why could many players benefit from cleansing their palate by throwing in a cozy game in the mix. It makes sense why playing a fast-paced, intense, stimulating game such as multiplayer FPS gets a larger appeal. It's a very saturated experience to help contrast a less saturated life. The only thing is that, in my opinion, our lives are currently more saturated than ever before. We're constantly engaging with other people or their digital counterparts via increasing amount of content delivery channels. Our poor brain is blasted with information from the very moment we open up our eyes up until falling asleep watching a YouTube video or listening to a podcast. So the games have to evolve, become more stimulating than all of the other content available around. To become more engaging, these games tend to raise the stakes and pressure under which you have to perform. They need to be unpredictable, ever-changing, forcing the player to be constantly evaluating endless variables to make the best possible decision in order to win. Because that is the goal, to win over other players, to be better than them. This combination creates potentially negative factors like social stress from teammates or friends if you underperform, or cognitive overload from all the required fast reactions and decision making. Add a lack of downtime to the loop where you move from one high-stakes match to another, and soon enough, this overstimulation becomes the norm for you. Eventually, this can lead to burning out of certain games where you lose any enjoyment and start to feel obliged to play the game, which are most likely totally opposite reasons why you picked up the game in the first place. Of course, I don't mean that this happens to everyone playing multiplayer FPS, or that you should not play these kinds of games at all, but I have experienced a game becoming a chore that I have to do every day, because if I don't, I'll lose out on some rewards or fall behind. This is where a game like Lawn Mowing or Power Wash Simulator is completely different. They can be associated with the genre of cozy games, where the stakes are low, the gameplay is more relaxing than competitive, and regardless of your performance, the sense of accomplishment is provided to the player. It's definitely not for everyone all the time, but I'm quite sure that a lot of people can benefit from slowing down and trying out something like one of these games. And this brings us back to the excellence of the mundane. As we've experienced while looking at both of these simulator games, it's clear that the art of gamifying any mundane tasks is not that easy to achieve. You can't just slap together some cheap assets make a primitive gameplay loop and call your creation the definitive cozy game experience. Mundane is not equal to cozy. If the game is predicted to have any serious success, it still needs to have satisfying sounds, visuals, and progress tracking that provides the player a clear feedback on the goals that have been set. Besides that, you need to have a polished enough meta progression by upgrading tools, equipment, or abilities at your disposal, and ideally also a sense of mastery, by slowly and without pressure becoming more skilled at completing the necessary tasks. I think more games could take advantage of balancing the more intense and stimulating parts with some simple but satisfying tasks to let the player catch a breath, and I think most of us could enjoy a break from our overstimulated everyday lives, including the similarly enough-paced games that often contribute to it. And to conclude, if I had to choose between our two titles here on the plate, after spending a few hours with each of the games, I think I might even prefer the more dull nature of the Lawn Mowing Simulator. Maybe it's because of the almost meditative state I can get while playing the game, maybe because playing the Power Wash Simulator for longer periods made me slightly motion sick, or maybe just because I quite enjoy mowing grass in my countryside, and it brings me back to my childhood when this was a regular part of my summer break routine. The Lawn Mowing Simulator is also cheaper, you can get it on sale for 5 or 6 euros on Steam, and it's a great game to hop on and listen to a podcast or turn on a video essay on YouTube. Of course, you can do this while playing Power Wash Simulator just as well, and most likely I will enjoy a mix of these games in the foreseeable future, but if I have to answer honestly to myself, I rank the simplicity of lawn mowing just a tiny bit higher. While Power Wash Simulator might be considered the objectively better game, I believe Lawn Mowing Simulator embodies a greater sense of the mundane excellence. Let me know what you think in the comments. What are your favorite games that excel at being mundane? In the end, I really hope that this video motivates at least one person to try out one of these or maybe some other cozy game and experience the slow burning thrill themselves. And if you made it this far in the video, I truly thank you for your time. If you enjoyed the video, I would greatly appreciate if you left a like or a dislike if you didn't enjoy it. And leave a comment if there are other things you like or dislike about any of these games, or if you would like to see more content in similar fashion. Stay safe and bye for now.